In the early 1930s, a new generation of aircraft was steadily changing the world of commercial aviation in Europe. There were more and more aircraft that were both light and fast, and boasted efficient airframes and retractable landing gear. Those planes were not only faster than their contemporary military counterparts, but also faster than some fighters. That was a weird turn of events for sure, but most importantly, it prompted the military to change their views on bombers. Why would you build just aircraft that are heavy and slow when you could also make bombers that are light and fast? Thanks to their speed, they would never have to face their opponents directly, and it seemed that it wasn't even that difficult to make aircraft like that. That's how passenger-carrying planes, without much of a fuss, were turned into bombers. Bombers like the Dornier 17, or more specifically, the Dornier 17E-1 production variation. The Dornier 17 made its combat debut during the Spanish Civil War, where it successfully fought Soviet biplanes. The team behind the project followed up their unexpected success with the Dornier 17Z-2 variation. Fitted with new engines, the aircraft was even faster than before, and the idea to group pilots together with gunners in one shared space so that they could better coordinate their actions led the engineers at Dornier to design a new cockpit, with guns sticking out of it. Majestic! When Germans tried to make a move against Britain, Allies retaliated with nocturnal bombing missions of their own. The Bf-110 did a decent job of guarding the skies of Germany at the time. But Germans were too ambitious to be content with just that. They wanted to destroy British aircraft right above their own airfields. Returning home after missions, British bombers didn't have much fuel to spare, and that made them vulnerable. The Bf-110 wasn't really cut out for this kind of job. It simply lacked the required range. The Dornier 17Z aircraft were a completely different story though, especially with a few adjustments. The new model, called the 17Z7, was given a solid nose fitted with a new array of guns, including 3 machine guns and a 20mm cannon. And that's not mentioning the fact that the aircraft could carry a few 50-kilogram bombs on top of that. That meant that it could fight enemy bombers and then disrupt an enemy airfield, even if just for a short while. Alas, the 17Z7 didn't serve for long. By early 1942, they were already replaced by more modern designs. Apart from the Dornier 17 line, the manufacturer also had the Dornier 217 series. Those were more of a traditional take on bombers, with heavy focus on bigger bomb loads. For example, the Dornier 217 could carry up to 4 tons of bombs. There are a couple of different variations of this aircraft in the game. The Dornier 217E2 and the Dornier 217E4. Both are capable of dive bombing, and the latter also has a 20mm cannon in one of its turrets instead of a regular machine gun, significantly boosting its defense potential. In 1942, the Luftwaffe was in a dire need of powerful night fighters. Willy Messerschmitt said that he'd solve this problem by giving Germany his brand new Me-210, which he did. But it wasn't a very effective design. To make matters worse, to be able to produce it, Germany had to cut the production of the Bf-110, ultimately meaning that pilots were left with nothing. Old model, new model, they weren't getting any. The only fast solution in this pickle of a situation was to turn the Dornier 217 bombers into night fighters, especially given the fact that Dornier engineers had had some experience in this field already. To build the J-1 night fighter, they modified the Dornier 217E2, creating a very threatening flying beast with significant hitting power. It had 4 20mm cannons and could carry up to 8 50-kilogram bombs. On the other hand, the new aircraft also was so damned heavy that it was a good 50 kph slower than its predecessor. That's not a good thing when you're supposed to outrun British heavy bombers. But, oh well. In the game, though, the Dornier 217J1 is quite effective. That much firepower means a lot at its BR. And it's certainly not the slowest out there. It's pretty decent, in fact, so there's that. The next version of the Dornier 217J2 was given a search radar, meaning that it didn't have to rely solely on the intel coming from the ground to locate enemy aircraft and plan its engagements. All in all, this night fighter version was even more fearsome in terms of combat capabilities, but it was still one of the heaviest fighters in the German roster. Yeah, you won't be breaking any speed records on that one. Then we had the Dornier 217K. The team at Dornier fitted the aircraft with new engines and improved the design of the cockpit. A new streamlined forward section had no projection in front of the windscreen, improving cockpit visibility. This bomber was also capable of carrying torpedoes, making it a very viable pick in naval battles. There was just one small problem. The new BMW 810D engines were not produced in sufficient numbers, to put it mildly. Nobody wanted to see production ground to a halt because of that, so engineers at Dornier quickly reworked the aircraft design to allow the use of the DB603 engines. This aircraft variation was called the Dornier 217M1. By the way, the very same engine powered the Dornier 217N1, which was very similar to the J2. Then there was also the Dornier 217N2, the last descendant of the Dornier 217 bloodline. It was equipped with Schräge Musik, or simply put, upward-firing cannons. Why would anyone want that on their aircraft, you might ask? Well, British bombers that were used for nocturnal bombing missions at the time were very vulnerable to attacks from below, because they lacked effective ventral armament. With Schräge Musik cannons, you could just get under the enemy aircraft and shred it to pieces. Was that a fairly unconventional tactic? Sure, but it worked. Dornier aircraft, throughout the years of their service, saw a lot of changes, some of which were really drastic. Those planes were turned into night fighters, into bombers. They lost their bomb bays, got them back again, and sometimes engineers making them repeated their mistakes for one reason or another. All of that, though, didn't prevent Dornier aircraft from becoming a very big part of World War II history. And no, that's not a dig at their size. Well, maybe just a little one. What about you? What is your go-to Dornier aircraft? Please tell us in the comments below.